welcome to the sixth session, and we're going to start this off with an exercise, a listening exercise, but then we're going to come back and debrief that exercise together, what it was like to be the speaker and the listener, and what the observer noted in terms of listening skills, and then we're going to talk more about empathy and listening, and I'll just expose you to something called stages of change, helping to, which I think helps us to understand people better, and then motivational interviewing, which is very closely related to listening skills and how to be an effective helper through listening and some techniques. Okay, so what we'll do now is the three of you find a place to have three chairs together, decide who's going to start as in each role, and three of you, and Aaron looks a little apprehensive. That's me using my interpersonal emotional intelligence skills. I could be all wrong. And then we'll debrief. So on the screen, I'm putting, on the screen I have the 5 skills, okay? So. Okay, why don't we come back together? And you know what, we'll do our debriefing together. We'll do the debriefing together. Okay, so we'll come back together. Yeah.
You didn't ask, so I had to choose.
But when you say you only remember things about it.
Yeah, it was really cold.
Okay, you guys are enjoying this too much, okay?
Sorry.
So. Okay.
Yeah. In the morning.
Okay, so let's let me hear from the observers. You were all observers. So from an observer point of view, what you saw in terms of good listening.
I noticed that when Stephanie was listening to James, she was leaning forward and she maintained eye contact with him the whole time. Yeah. And she would nod a lot, showing that she was engaging and following his train of thought. Yeah, good. I noted, when I came back from my cup of tea, I noted James was still talking. So I thought, the listener must be doing a really good job. We need to move them along. But what was it like to be listened to in that way?
I felt so good because she showed interest in our conversation, the story that I was telling her, and that led to one question and to another question and just wanting to know more about it. And
okay.
I felt connected. Yeah,
and you just felt like you keep talking, yeah. Right? It looked to me like you were enjoying yourself, that you were, and Stephanie created the environment where you were enjoying talking, and you kept talking, right? Yeah, that's what we want to do, right? And other observations of good listening?
When Aaron was listening to Katie, he expressed appropriate interest and expression in the climaxes of her story. So like when something shocking happened or surprising, he expressed that, wow, or facial expression of like, I'm actually paying attention and I know when the climax of the story is.
Yeah, wow. So what did that moment that Alan just described feel like when at the climax of your story that Aaron responded non-verbally? Do you remember what that felt like?
I mean, I was excited. I was trying to finish the end of the story because we were just stopping at that point. So.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Any other observations of good listening?
I thought James asked good follow-up questions,
to things Josue said, and he expressed care and concern, like that's concerning. You know, he expressed that he felt similarly to Josue, so I thought those were two good things he did.
Okay. Yeah. Anything else? Observations or how you felt? Was there a moment that you really felt something as a result of the good listening? Yeah.
I felt like James wasn't just trying to rush the conversation along. I mean, it was short in time, but like he was. Sometimes it feels like people have like an agenda and they're trying to get there really quick. It seemed like he was just enjoying listening to what I was saying.
Yeah. So even if you have only a short period of time, can you use these skills to give a good experience to the speaker? Right? I think the answer to that is yes. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think as Josue was listening to Stephanie, the story that Stephanie was giving was so fascinating, so that even though time was short, he wanted to continue listening because he paid attention. And so I think as much as it ended abruptly, we said carry forward another time. So it creates an opportunity to connect again.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, and you're going to look forward to continuing that story together, right? Yeah, that's a good way to end, right? Is looking forward to it. Other comments?
I mean, as a listener, it was interesting. I found it a little hard to do summarizing or paraphrasing.
In a short period of time like this, it is
like,
hard to do that.
Yeah. It felt like it was going to come across as silly, but. So I think mostly we asked a lot of probing questions to each other. So yeah, it was a little hard to do the paraphrasing.
In a few minutes, how you paraphrase every 15 seconds? You don't want to do that. But yeah, so it's an artificial situation. But good. It's when it goes well. It's just like you had this great conversation with a friend, right? Yeah. So my job is like all day long just to have great conversations with people, and I like that. I mean, I like a job like that. So I really am interested in people. I didn't used to be interested in people. I used to be. I didn't really even like people, but over time that changed, and I do find people fascinating. But that's been sort of created in me, and so we can change ourselves, and we can show curiosity and interest, and that stimulates talking, and we create an environment of safety, and do a few right things, help them go deeper, summarize, they can move along, they can gain some insights, and we remember to do a few things that deepen this experience, and it's not a friendship. A friendship is a mutual relationship, so it's really not mutual, but I as a listener can still really enjoy myself, or really feel. The conversation may not be about a fun topic, but can really feel. But as a listener, one of the struggles I have is, somebody starts talking about their problems, or maybe it's two people, and then the dynamics multiply, and maybe they're not getting along well, and I can be very anxious. I can be very anxious up front. It's like I got 50 minutes here to figure out what's going on and say something meaningful. And I don't know am I going to be able to do that? Now, I'm thinking that, and I'm not listening. Like, oh my goodness, I didn't even hear what they just said for the last 2 minutes. And I'm getting more and more anxious, and then I realize, I didn't even hear what they said. What do I do now? Should I admit that I didn't hear anything, or should I just nod and just keep, and now another minute has gone by. So I've learned I've learned to trust this process. That if I listen, so I need to calm myself and trust. To trust this process that if I listen, I will be of some help. And I don't need to solve this problem today. I just need to understand it better. So just listen. And usually I have something to say at the end. So, that's the way. So just trust it. Trust the process that by listening and by doing S, O, L, A, and R, if I do that, I will help them. Okay? Now, can anybody learn that? Anybody can learn that, right? And that's most of the help in counseling. Right? So just start practicing this with everybody in your life. And why not? Because, then you may just be a better listener with those people, right? Single guys, girls love this stuff. So anyway, so let's go on to, and wives love it too, by the way. So, I just want to talk about a couple of additional concepts, and I'm just going to scratch the surface here, but if you find these interesting, you can go much deeper. And they'll help us with listening and empathy, meaning understanding. And two ideas. So, motivational interviewing. Okay, those two words. Interviewing means I'm asking questions. Okay, I'm going to be an interviewer. Sometimes that's the word that's used for the listener as an interviewer. That's not a great word. We're not interviewing, but I'm asking questions. So that means I'm going to be someone who asks questions. And by doing so, I'm going to help create motivation in the client. So remember, the most important success factor in counseling is the motivation of the client, is their willingness to change, their humility to be teachable. That's important. Can I have an impact upon that? I can. So I'm going to take that on as part of my responsibility, is to create motivation in a person. Even if they, I could say, they're not motivated. What can I do? Well, can I create motivation? Okay. So a method of counseling that seeks to create in the client both insights, because I'm asking questions, we're talking, and also motivation. Now, over the years, biblical counseling, as that has evolved, has really come to appreciate this much more. And that's important, right? That's important. Even if you're primarily using the Bible and not using psychological principles, we have to agree, everybody agrees, that listening and is important. And it's important to being successful as a healer. So some of the ideas. So asking permission. Okay, Steve earlier described how he approaches a patient, and they just have a few minutes, and he's got to learn what's going on. He starts off by asking permission. May I ask you a few questions? Right? So if I ask permission, I'm setting a stage of trust, right? So asking permission. If at any point I decide I'm going to share some of my thoughts, which I will do, right? So I probably have emphasized the role of knowledge I have that will help people. But if I'm going to now say something, and I want them to listen and them to be open, I have to pry them open. So I will ask permission. I've been hearing your story today, and I have a couple of thoughts. Maybe that would be helpful. Okay, maybe that will be helpful. Being tentative, right? I'm going to be tentative. Now I'm doing this when I'm pretty sure that what I'm about to say is going to be helpful. But could I say, offer a couple of ideas that maybe would be helpful to you? Like, yeah, sure. Like, I don't know if they're exactly what you need right now, but they're just things that have gone around in my head. Sure. And I might do that however much I think I need to do it. It's like, come on, man. That's why I'm here. Say something. But if I ask permission and I'm tentative about, I'm not absolutely saying this is what you need to do, this is true. They're going to be open. I'm just prying them open because I want this to go in. I want them to be open and not, okay, go ahead, Then they're not open. They're not going to hear it. I want them to attend to it. So I'll ask permission. I'll be tentative. I will listen for change talk. Encourage change talk. Okay, change talk is them talking about changing their situation. I could talk all day long about changing their situation, right? But, and maybe they'll hear it, but they won't leave motivated to do something about it. But if I can get them to talk about changing their situation, then this is going to be a win, right? So that young lady came in, and I had this sense after the first session. She said so many nutty things, and now heard herself say them out loud. And I just repeated, in a matter-of-fact way, non-judgmental way. I think, knowing her, I think that's going to change her. And so then when she came back in and she started talking about her new insights and had some motivation, I'm listening for how she talks about her change. And if she's going back to, not change, status quo, then I want to address that. Well, is that what you said a few minutes ago? And so I'll ask questions to get them to talk about their change. So what impact do you think long-term smoking every day, all day long, might have on you? Well, it's, they might say, it's not addictive. They say it is, but it's really not addictive. Like, I don't want to encourage that. That's status quo talk. You say, well, I have read some things that maybe, and I've known a couple people who said, said they were addicted. Oh, tell me more about that. I want her talking about change. Maybe once in a while I will talk about it, but it's much better if she talks about change, and I want to encourage that. I'm listening for it, and I'm encouraging or discouraging, depending on what's happening. Right? Avoid resistance. If I start telling her what to do, this is human nature, she is going to start presenting reasons why she doesn't have to do it, right? Well, I think that you should not be using marijuana. Well, it hasn't really been a problem in my life. Now I've got her talking about the status quo. And then I've got myself into a situation where she's talking about not changing. My question should drive change, right? So if I see that kind of resistance, I will back away. I'm going to stop that line of questioning, and we'll go to something else. I might even go to the extreme, and you've heard of this before, reverse psychology, okay? Oh, okay, so really marijuana has no impact upon your life. I mean, it's not unhealthy, it's, for your body or your brain. That's what I've heard you say. Well, and then what I hope she does is, well, no, wait a minute, I didn't say that. Okay, well, what was it you did say about it being unhealthy? Well, I've read that, and now I've got her back talking about change. Of course, I've taken a risk, because she may say, I know what you're doing. but if there's resistance, then I'm going to back away. Because I'm looking for her to talk about her change. Right? And maybe I will a little bit, but it's much more important that she talks about that. I may say something paradoxical, like when I treat addiction for behavioral addictions, like smoking or which is also behavioral or pornography. I say, I ask, well, when does it happen? And I just want to understand the schedule, the behavior, and then I say, don't do it any less this week, okay? And just be aware of when it happens. And they're like, what? Okay, and that usually leads to reduced behavior, right? Because it's paradoxical. I'm telling them don't stop, which you're going to think about, and now you'll be more aware of when it happens or when it may be about to happen, and it usually reduces behavior. Normalizing the client, it helps that the client knows there's a lot of people in my situation, right? You're not validating behavior, you're not saying it's okay, but it can be helpful to say, I do talk to a lot of people who are having this problem right now, and it's possible to change, right? Sometimes people feel like they're the only person in the world, and they're so terrible, and it helps. It helps in change. So these last two, and this is something you'd have to look a lot more into, but you can find books on motivational interviewing. There's a Wikipedia article, but I'll do things that will help create change, help motivate change. Pros and cons. It's called decisional balancing. What are the pros and cons of using marijuana? And there are pros, and I'm not afraid of them. Of course there are pros. That's why they're doing it. Well, it helps me relax. Okay, and the pros, and then the cons, right? And I usually don't feel like doing anything, and it does create motivational problems, and I've gained weight, and the cons, and then okay, let's look at this together. And the goal of that is to just think this through, and as part of a decisional balancing, and when I'm doing this, I'm not looking for this exercise to show, there's more pros to smoking marijuana than there are cons. I'm pretty sure that there's going to be cons there that we haven't considered and that will be persuasive. So I'm being non-judgmental. Like, well, let's just look at them. And I take a piece of paper, put a T on it, and hand it to them. You write this down, right? And they're producing all of the results. I may be asking questions. And before you said that this was a problem. Oh, yeah. Okay. And those kinds of exercises force people to think. And they lead to decision making. And that's what I'm trying to do, is think and then make a different kind of decision. Okay. And another way of doing that is to create discrepancies in the person's mind, a cognitive dissonance that, you've told me how important God is to you, and church and Scripture, but you've also described to me your drug use. Tell me about that. And so what I'm trying to do is to show there's a difference in your values and your behavior. And when you can do that, and there's different exercises you could do that, or you can ask questions. When you create a discrepancy in someone's mind, that creates motivation for change. This is not who I want to be. Or who am I when I'm using drugs versus who I am when I'm not using drugs. And let's make a list. So we're doing little exercises to kind of put both sides of the argument out there, and then maybe your son will decide to go to the little Christian, school where he'll thrive at. Okay, when you do all that, and it'll be his decision. Right? Okay. You could read more about this, but what I'm just giving you a glimpse into is the best way, and science validates this, clinical trials of using motivational interviewing or not, as part of your helping people, this is the best way to help people make changes in their lives, right? So you can read more about this and learn something and add this to your listening exercises, right? Okay. So I also want to introduce you very quickly to something called Stages of Change. There was a popular book, a book written on a popular level in the 80s called Changing for Good, right? I'll give you that in the deck. Changing for Good. And a number of academics, sponsored by the American Cancer Society, like how can we help people quit smoking? And what the researchers thought they were going to discover was there is a best way. Of all the psychological theories, there is a best way to help people to quit smoking. And then the American Cancer Society would apply that. What they discovered is that's not true. That there's a lot of different ways of helping people quit smoking. But those different ideas work at different, that there's actually stages of change. When people are changing, going from being a smoker to a non-smoker, that there's different stages they go through, and you have to do different things at different stages. Okay. So, different approaches to helping people. And if we understand this, then we as helpers, if we can understand, well, what stage of change are they at, then I can help more appropriately. I'll be more relevant, more effective, and so forth, right? But I'm just going to briefly describe this to you. You'll have this in your materials. So people, the first stage is pre-contemplation. And contemplation means thinking, and it's before they're thinking. It's before they're thinking they have a problem. I do not have a problem. Smoking, my uncle, he smoked until he died. He was 98 years old. Never had a problem. Okay, and I don't have a problem. So I don't think there's a problem. So if I right now offer that person, well, you want to try a nicotine patch? That helps people to stop smoking. And they say, well, why would I want more nicotine? I have cigarettes, that's the wrong intervention. That's the wrong suggestion to make. That doesn't help, right? That will help someone else. So I don't have a problem. To move somebody from the point that they don't believe they have a problem to they do believe they have a problem, that is a big leap, right? That's the biggest leap anybody makes. So how do I do that? And that's a different intervention than offering a solution for quitting. And so that kind of intervention, let's say for smoking, we were talking about the boxes of cigarettes you can buy in the airport when you're in another country, and they have big black box warnings. Smoking kills. That would be one of them. Smoking kills. So I'm about to buy this carton of cigarettes, duty-free. Smoking kills, and then now there's a picture of a dead person or something grotesque. Right? What are they doing? They're providing some information in a very emotional way. And if somebody really doesn't think they have a problem, they need information, but they also need motivation, right? And emotions create motivation. Okay, we learned that. Okay? Now somebody starts to believe, well, maybe I do have a problem. But what do I do about that problem? And so in a good active listening way, then you would say, well, could I share some possible options with you, right? I don't think all of them would be appealing, but some of them might be appealing. So I'm being tentative and giving them choice. When people have choices, they're more likely to make a decision, unless you give them too many choices. So there's all kinds of ideas about how to help people change, and you'll have to read about this more. But the books are out there, right? And now they're saying, well, maybe I can try a patch. Okay, let's try a patch and see if that works for you. And now have moved from contemplation, they're doing preparation for change, and now they've made a choice and they're taking action. And now I don't necessarily need to provide emotional or insight or emotional motivation, right? I need to support their action. Okay, how can we get you some patches? And they start, and they're having some success, and can I help support maintenance so that they can stay on it? You notice that the first few steps are more cognitive and emotional processes, and the others are more behavioral. How can I help? What can we do to help you? Right? So I present this for only one reason, and that is people are different, and they are at different stages of change. And if this person has a problem and they're in denial, a lot of people will say, well, I can't do anything about that. Well, maybe I can do something about that. There are interventions that are very congruent with listening and relationship developing and the empathy, and where I can become persuasive with my ears and help them consider information and provide motivation so that they are willing to make a change. And at that point, now I need to do something different. Even an individual person will be different because at different stages of a problem. And different people will be different. Well, I can't help them. Well, this covers everybody, including the person who relapses. A lot of people relapse, a lot of people go back using cigarettes, normalizing, and they can come back from that. And in fact, they learn something that helps them the next time. And you will cycle through this, and you'll drop back, and that's how it works. But I'm here to help you, right? I'm here to help you, right? So what I hope I'm doing is creating a little bit more understanding or empathy for people. I suggest something else. Read a book on the brain. Sometime during your life, read a book about the brain, okay? And then you develop a little bit of empathy for yourself, like, okay, this is how brains work. These are pretty imperfect. They're strong, and they're probably the most complex thing in the universe. Your brain is probably as equally complex as the universe itself. It has as many, between the number of cells, 100 billion cells, and the 100 billion connections that exist, that is as many stars as there are in the universe. And so your brain is at least that complex. Maybe it's the most complex thing in the universe, right? And God made that and gave that to us, or that's us, right? And so people are different, and it pays to learn more about the brain, and it gives you a little more empathy for yourself and empathy for others. And you see, okay, we're human beings, this is where we're at, but I think I can help. I'll try to help, okay?